Welcome to week 6. You're getting there, nearing the end. Amazing. Make sure you're keeping up with the reading, please, and your papers, of course. And all of you are doing great on the discussion forum. Thank you for your diligence there. Something that I want you to pay attention to this week, and really as we all go through this COVID-19 experience together, is the idea of paradox. And it's something that I've always taught in this course, but what's fascinating me is how much it is coming to the surface with the coronavirus. And what I mean by that is this idea of things that are in conflict with each other, things that really don't seem like they should go together, and yet somehow in a very stressful way they do. For example, the fact that we have been ordered to stay home, most of us, not all, but a lot of us, or we're asked to at least reduce our exposure to other people. And yet, there's been some good emerging from that. Even though, if you had told us all that 3 months ago, we would have said, how horrible, can't imagine that's not going to happen, there's no way we can recover from that. And yet, there's good emerging, right? And if you look at social media, every one of you at some point in your papers or your discussion forums has come up against the fact that this is not good about it, but oh, all right, there's this thing over here that is good. So how do we correlate? Oh my goodness, how do we correlate the two? It's so much easier to have course content or have an idea that's polarized, that you can just say, I agree with A. Nope, I agree with B. Why do you agree with A? I don't want to talk to you. It's kind of where our culture has taken us. Social media, by some accounts, has taken us. But that's not the overarching theme of either social media or the internet or our culture today or this current pandemic experience that we're all walking through. There is no simplicity to it. And people who reduce it to that, I would argue, are doing us a disservice because it forces us maybe into a corner where we're not comfortable. And I hope that you're self-aware enough to watch for that. When you feel forced, either in your workplace, in your home, or on social media, to choose an A or a B, always ask yourself if there's an 8.3 or a C or a D or an E. Because in most cases, there are other answers, and it might be a mix of the two. It might be something that nobody's even thought of. That's where creativity comes in. And both of the chapters that I've asked you to read for this week really dig in. And if you read them too quickly, you can just skim over that. Or just read the titles. So for example, in the Prado text, and I think you've all gotten by now, Prado is the editor, has written some pieces of it, but these are individual authors, so pay attention to that author name, especially when you're citing the source in a paper. This one is by Alec Leitch. It's called Exclusive Spaces. And the paradox here is that we're in a cultural time when we're longing to belong to something that's exclusive. And so one example he gives is Starbucks. Feels exclusive, feels like it's higher end, but really, who's it appealing to? It's more of a middle class level, and actually they have worked very hard at a national level to make sure that every product that they serve is made by exactly the same recipe. So if I order a latte quad shot with coconut milk on the East Coast, I'm going to get the same flavor, the same product as I'm going to get on the West Coast or somewhere in the Midwest. And at one point he even says they tried to erase the personality of the barista from the equation so that it truly is an exclusive Starbucks product. But there's a paradox there. Is that really exclusive if we all have access to it? And yet somehow with their gold level membership card or whatever it is that they have, you feel like you're a member of something. And that's what we're longing for. So read that chapter slowly so you really get a sense of the paradox there. Same thing happens in the Turkle's book. So the chapter is called Anxiety, and you might, if you were going too quickly, just think, oh, well, yes, social media causes anxiety. We've actually already talked about that. We've talked about if you leave your cell phone on and it's pinging you constantly, the anxiety that you can feel, and a lot of you have said, nope, I've muted mine, as have I, years ago, where mine doesn't even buzz with a vibration. It doesn't do anything. I check it when I check it, which is probably too often, but The anxiety that can be caused by a constant pinging or a constant buzzing, that's actually not what she's getting into in this chapter. It runs far deeper than that. And I don't want to give it all away, except to say that the passage that I'm asking you to dig into in your response paper this week is on the 3rd page of the chapter. So it's pretty early in. And I'll just read it to you quickly. She says, "We have to love our technology enough to describe it accurately." So I want you to rest there for a moment. What does she mean by that? She means that we have to be invested in it enough to do what we're doing in this course, which is to dig through what it means to us individually, what it means to our culture, what it's meant in the past, what the trajectory is forward. Second part. And we have to love ourselves enough to confront technology's true effects on us. Now be careful about reacting quickly to that and saying, oh, yes, I know, well, it's about anxiety, so it has to be this. She digs in. This is a longer chapter, so she digs in over the pages that come into what exactly that might mean and the variety of mixed messages that we are giving and that we are getting and that we are assuming in the whole process and the complexity of that. Because we may, on a Tuesday, conclude one thing and decide that something is good and therefore I'm going to go in this direction, and on Friday it's completely different. And doesn't that echo of our experience with the coronavirus pandemic? We get one set of directions or restrictions or assumptions on Tuesday, and by Friday it has changed. And oh my goodness, the first week was just crazy making, wasn't it? And for those of us in leadership on any level to have to communicate that clearly, to other people as we're making decisions for our own programs or departments or wherever it is that you work was exhausting. And hopefully you've settled into something where you kind of know to expect the unexpected, but it's not clear. There's not an A or a B, and I would propose that the new norm that we're hoping to get back to will probably carry that forward. And that might be okay. There might be a richer, deeper existence in that, but it's going to feel pretty uncomfortable for a while, and right now it does feel uncomfortable. So the anxiety chapter, I want you to read slowly, because by the end you're going to find her making some conclusions about this. She's going to be suggesting some things about the complexity of it that you can agree with or disagree with in your papers. So it's not just the simplicity of anxiety bad. Please don't go there with your papers. It is a lot deeper than that. And the better, what she's suggesting in those 2 simple lines is I'm trying to cull down for you a way to get into this chapter and into this week, is that we've got to know our technology well. And that in itself is a broad definition. And then we have to know ourselves well. And ourselves might be you yourself, but it also could be your family who's quarantined with you right now. It could be an extended family. It could be the culture around you, your community, whatever it is that you hold dear. And the better you can articulate what that is, and the better you can observe how people are responding and help them through it and identify your own reactions, the richer, better person you will be, the better able to contribute to society in ways that probably you never imagined. Have fun with the TED Talks this week. So I'm really excited for you to dig into, especially the Sir Tim Berners-Lee. You might find him a bit of an odd duck in the way that he presents, but check out his bio. This is somebody that you should know, and you might watch his other videos as well. And the other person, Eli Pariser, also very influential in the field. And I'm well aware of the years on these. I'm usually trying to find things that are within the past couple of years for TED Talks, but we're stepping a little bit back in history here. And I want you to look at the year that each was given, each talk was delivered, and then how one builds on the other. And then imagine if they were to speak in 2020 and they're both still around, what might they say, and what might they say looking backwards? And here's our theme for the week: what might they say about this idea of paradox? And what does that mean in your life right now, in your line of work, in your family, in the way that you're embracing all that is happening. And I'll leave you with one quick example of paradox that was really a joy for me. I hope you all had just a wonderful Easter yesterday. It was a curious one, wasn't it? It was kind of funny to see all the family pictures that people were posting where they were still dressed up. We didn't do this, but dressed up in a tie and a dress. And if you did, good for you. I didn't force my family to do that, but we did gather for church. In fact, we gathered in this room, and I was leading the service and delivering the sermon, and for the first time ever in the history of our church, and I know for all of our congregation members gathered, the first time ever we broke bread and had communion together over Zoom video conference. So I'm pastor of a very small church here in Sherwood. We typically have about 50 in attendance, and by count on the Zoom squares, and each square was filled with maybe 2, maybe 6 or 7 people in a family unit, we probably had 50, 60 plus people in attendance, and it was profound. It was new. It was Easter. It was the first time that we had actually gathered all on the screen together. And one of my elders, actually on our elder board, we went around for a little while sharing a favorite Easter memory, and they had just some delightful stories. And I was really touched when he shared, because we were talking about what was an Easter that you remember, an Easter memory. And he shared that Sunday, yesterday, was going to go down as his most memorable Easter ever, because here we were as a church body demonstrating that church was not just about the walls of our building, which in times past we've worried about, and we do a little bit now, about paying the mortgage and will we keep our building, and if we don't keep our building, are we still a church? What does that mean? And here we were gathered a little bit more than we might be on a regular Sunday, and we were laughing and we were trying to sing together, even though microphones were muted, and we had our worship team. They were in one living room together, but you could see people, their mouths wide open, singing along and demonstrating that the church is not just about the 4 walls of a building. So do you see the paradox there? It's uncomfortable not to be together because we love to be giving each other a hug and saying, how are you doing? And high five and just greeting each other in person in the same space. We can't. And yet this, by my elder's description, goes down as probably the most memorable Easter he will ever have, because we couldn't, but we came up with a new way that we could. Paradox. So rest in that. I look forward to your discussion forums and your response papers. Blessings on your week.